Hello guys, so good morning. So for today po, we're going to talk about the Module 5. So this is the week 5 of our semester. So for today po, we're going to discuss about the conceptual framework of the practical research 2. So ano po ba yung mga napag-aralan natin previously? So last module, na-discuss natin yung written statement of the problem and then nag-activity kayo regarding this. Pinagawan ko kayo ng statement of the problem. And then, sinubukan din natin i-discuss yung about sa paggawa ng survey questionnaire. So, bakit po ba natin siningit yung survey questionnaire doon sa chapter 4 or sa module 4 ng ating discussion? Kasi ano na tayo patapos na kasi tayo sa chapter 1. Today, we're about to discuss about the chapter 2 of the practical research. So, dapat bago mag-chapter 2, alam nyo na kung paano mag-generate ng mga items para sa inyong survey questionnaire. So, actually, survey questionnaire, ginagawa po talaga siya sa chapter 3 hanggang last part na yon. Kaya lang, mas maigi kasi na habang fresh pa sa inyo yung statement of the problem, nakakapag-create na kayo ng mga question items para sa inyong survey questionnaire. Kaya dun ko po nilagay yung paggawa ng survey questionnaire. And kasama din po yun sa content ng exam nyo. Okay? So, ngayon naman, i-discuss na po natin ang ating conceptual framework. Okay. So, this will be our lesson for today. The lesson 10, the conceptual framework. Okay. So, bago yan, i-discuss ko muna sa inyo kung ano ba ang framework. What is framework? What is a research framework? Okay, so ibig sabihin po, itong research framework na to ay may iba't ibang klase or types. A research framework is a bit like a recipe or a blueprint. It provides an outline of how you plan to conduct the research of your thesis, but it goes further than that by also positioning your work within the larger field of research. Writing a conceptual framework can not only help to guide your thesis to ensure that your research stays on track, but it also helps to guide fellow researchers or advisors who are analyzing your thesis. So, ano tong framework na to? So, tong framework na to, lagi nyo tong nakikita sa isang research work. Okay? Ang framework po na ito can be a concept map, ano ba? Ano pa? It can be a circles na arrows. So, ito po ay isang balangkas ng isang research work. Pag sinabi po nating balangkas, nagpaplano ka muna. Ang sabi niya, isa siyang recipe or blueprint. Nakakita na po ba kayo ng blueprint ng isang bahay? Ganon din po ang research framework. Ito yung first thing na gagawin mo bago ka bubuo ng isang bahay. Bago ka magko-construct ng isang bahay, kailangan mo munang mag-drawing. So, tong research framework po na to, may involvement sa pagdodrawing. Pero don't you worry kasi hindi naman ganun kahirap na mag-drawing. Anong i-input mo dun sa drawing mo na yon? Yun po yung mga ideas, ano pa? Ideas, thoughts about your research work. Okay? Again, a research framework is a recipe or a blueprint or the outline of how you plan to conduct your research. Okay? Now, what are the two types of research framework? We have what we call the theoretical and the conceptual framework. Paano po nagkakaiba itong dalawang framework na to? Okay, theoretical framework is commonly used for studies that anchor on time-tested theories that relate the findings of the investigation to the underpinning relevant theory of knowledge. So, anong ibig sabihin po nito? So, itong mga theoretical framework, meron na po silang pinagbabasehan. Meron na pong theories na na-create within that research. And, kumbaga, Ito yung mga written theoretical frameworks kagaya ng Big Bang Theory. So, medyo meron na pong time-tested na nagaganap doon. So, ibabase na natin siya as theoretical. Okay? Kumbaga, meron ng mga understanding about it and napatunayan na isa siyang theory. Ano naman ang conceptual framework? Conceptual framework refers to the actual ideas, the beliefs, and tentative theories. Pag sinabi nating tentative, hindi pa siya talaga na-execute totally, hindi pa napatunayan. Ikaw pa lang yung nakapag-isip nun. Ikaw pa lang yung nagbigay ng hypothesis about it. Okay? So again, conceptual framework refers to the actual ideas, beliefs, and tentative theories that specifically support the study. It is primarily a conception or model of what is out there that the researcher plans to study. Okay, now I'm giving you 1 minute to think kung ano ba dapat yung kailangan nating buuin. Okay? Sige. I'm going to start the time. Siset ko muna siya into 60 seconds. Now, I'm giving you 1 minute to think kung ano ba yung dapat nating talakaying uh, research work. Sige, the time is running naman, kaya okay lang. Di lumilitaw yung timer ko. So, 19 seconds, 18 seconds, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 1. Okay. So, time's up. Ayan, di ko na siya tatanggalin dito. Wait lang. Para may timer tayo. Ayan. Kaya lang tapos na. Okay. So, ang ating gagamitin po na framework para sa ating quantitative research as a starter in research is the conceptual framework. Yun po yung tatalakayin natin. Sino po yung gumagamit ng mga theoretical framework? Usually po, ang gumagamit ng mga theoretical framework is yung mga nasa field po ng medical. Yung nasa field ng yung mga scientists, ayan. At saka yung mga napatunayan na yung mga psychologists, hindi naman napatunayan kasi pag sinabi nating theories, hindi pa siya totally talaga na-execute. Pero meron na silang mga batayan. Meron na silang mga batayan na pag-aaral. Okay? So tayo po sa quantitative research and the first time researcher, ang gagamitin po natin is the conceptual framework. So ano ang conceptual framework? Naglalaman po to ng mga actual ideas, beliefs, and tentative theories mo about the study. So, paano po ito gagawin? Ano po yung mga dapat i-consider? So, let's continue our discussion. Now, this is an example of a theoretical framework. Ayan, kung makikita nyo, ang daming mga bilog-bilog or mga para siyang mapa. Okay? So, ayan po ang example ng theoretical framework ng isang pag-aaral. Obserbahan nyo. Okay? And then, another example is this one. Ito, very simple to, pero it's a theoretical framework. Paano ko po nasabi na theoretical framework? Meron na pong napagbatayan na theory about it. So, we have the media devices, and then under it, we have the home and the school. So, ibig sabihin nun, pag nakita mo yan, di ba, i-visualize mo. So, kung ang topic niya is about the media devices, sino yung target niya? Sino yung subject niya or participants? Makikita mo dyan. That is the home and the school. So, below it, nandoon yung tinatawag na time or recency effect theory. So, di ba? Nag-conduct sila. na nakadepende sa time. And then dun sa baba is students' retention ability. So that is their theory. Ayan. Ni-note nila na it's a student retention theory. And then the other one, yung pinakababa, other affecting factors. So ayan po yung kanilang map, yung kanilang blueprint. Pero it's a theoretical framework. Okay? Kasi theory na siya. So, it can be a research work na nagbase sila sa dalawang theories, existing theories, and then pinagsama nila. Kaya ang ginamit nila is theoretical framework. Okay? Nagigets na po ba ang theoretical framework? So again, a theoretical framework, it can be the combination of different theories from another researcher or both from them. Pero theories, yung pinagbasihan nila. Okay? And these are also ideas and thoughts, but these are theories already. Ngayon, yung ating conceptual framework is composed of the what? The ideas, beliefs, your tentative theories na sa inyo as a researcher. Hindi ka lalayo. Ikaw mismo yung bubuo. So, ayan. Ito yung pinaka-basic example. So, ang ating topic will be the computers. And then, kanino? Sino yung ating target? The home and the school. And then, pwedeng from a duration, kaya tayo ginagawa natin tong research na to. And then, pwede din nating i-conduct yung retention ability, pwede nating i-research yung retention ability of the students, pero magsisimula pa lang tayo. Okay? Ikaw pa lang yung kikilos para dyan, para matuklasan mo yung understanding about that study. And then, we can also compose other affecting factors na pwede nating idagdag. It could be from the teacher, from the environment, and the topic. And this is an example of a conceptual framework. So kung mapapansin nyo, anong pinagkaiba nilang dalawa? Yung una, it's already a theory. Nagbase siya sa dalawang theories. The researcher based their research from maybe ha, I am not sure because kinuha ko lang tong example na to. The research work is about the recency effect theory made by the other researcher or both from them. These two theory, the recency effect theory and the student's retention theory. Okay? While the other one naman, conceptual framework. Mula sa konsepto. Konsepto ang pagbabalangkas. Ikaw yung mismong nagsulat niyan. Ikaw yung mismong nag-provide ng mga ideas dyan. So kung yung topic mo is about the effect of computers to the students, academic performance, blah blah blah, and then gumawa ka ng conceptual framework, so syempre ang isusulat mo, computer, and then naisip mo, saan, para kanino, saan ako magre-research, saan ko i-conduct, home, and then school. And then, what are the ideas na naiisip mo about your study? Siguro kailangan kong i-consider yung factor niyang duration. So, lagay ko yung duration. And then, siguro maigi na maisip ko na it's about the retention ability of the students. And then, you will write it. And then, what are the affecting factors that you will consider? Okay? So, isusulat nyo. This could be the teacher, the environment, and the topic. Okay? So, that is the conceptual framework. It is all about your beliefs, your ideas. Eh ma'am, paano po namin isusulat, idodrawing yung mga bilog-bilog? Depende po yun sa inyo. Kumbaga, meron tayong ginagawang concept mapping, di ba? Sa concept mapping, magsusulat lang ako ng title. Last time, ginawa na natin to. For example, wait lang. Nasaan yung ating marker? So, for example po, importance of quantitative research. Tama ba ako? The importance of quantitative research, ilalagay ko siya for example dito, sa gitna. The importance of quantitative research. And then, naglagay ka ng ganyan-ganyan. Nag-provide ka ng mga circles. This is an example of a concept map. Okay? So, a concept map is also related with conceptual framework. Depende kung saan mo na ilalagay yung mga bilog mo. Okay? Depende kung paano mo na-construct yung mga ideas on your mind. Kagaya nitong example natin sa conceptual framework. So, ang kanyang topic is pwedeng the computer, and then gusto niya, ayan, na sinet up niya ng ganyan yung kanyang framework. 'Di ba? Pero kayo yung gagawa ng sarili niyong konsepto with the building circles. Okay? Pwedeng ganyan, pwedeng ganito, pwedeng ganito. It's up to you pag sinabi nating framework. Okay? Kung paano mo ibibigay sa mambabasa mo or sa mga readers mo kung paano nila maiintindihan agad yung conceptual framework. So later on, didiscuss natin ano bang halaga nitong conceptual framework na to. Or pwede rin ganito. Okay? Now, dun sa exhibit 2 or dun sa picture 2 natin, dito, pwede kayong mag-base. This is the step for the conceptual framework making. First step daw, you have to identify the threats. What are the threats? And then, isignify mo. Ilagay mo kung ano yung mga threats. And then, second step, you have to evaluate the threats. Threats not significant, you can also write, or depende sa idea mo. Step 3, you have to identify the safeguards. And then, what are the existing one? Ano yung meron na? Step 4, you have to evaluate the safeguards. What are the threats that are acceptable level? And then you can proceed. And then pwedeng yung last part is, what are the threats not at acceptable level? So, meron kayong iba't ibang pwedeng ikabit dito sa conceptual framework nyo. Hindi lang ito yung pagbabatayan nyo. Kasi pag nag-isip ka ng conceptual framework mo, kagaya ng pag gumawa ka ng concept map about the importance of quantitative research, nag-cite ka ng isa, and then may naisip ka na pwede mong idugtong dito, lalagyan mo pa yan ng related or supporting idea. So maglalagay ka pa ng extra 2 circles dyan. Or kung ilan pa yung naiisip mo about this. Ano yung supporting? So parang kaganito ang conceptual framework. What is the main idea? And then, after then, what are the supporting ideas? And then within that supporting ideas, what are the subtopics? Ganun yung paggawa ng conceptual framework. Okay? Kagaya ng first example, we have the computer as the topic, the main topic. Or computers as the topic, and then home and school are the main topic. And then duration will be the supporting topic or supporting idea. And then, within the duration, meron pang mga subtopics or mga supporting, sub-supporting topics. So, ganun po yung paggawa ng conceptual framework. Okay? So, depende po yan sa inyo kung paano nyo siya gustong i-draw. Just like this one. So, you have the evidences, and then the idea 1, and then the idea 2. What will be the outcome? Okay? Or just like this one, conceptual framework fundamentals. So kung mapapansin nyo, may nakalagay dyan na ano, yung very familiar sa atin na lagi nating ginagamit. That is the presumed cause and the presumed effect, which are the independent variables and the dependent variables. So pwedeng ganyan. And then, what would be the context? What are the supporting ideas or thoughts about that subject? Okay? So, depende po sa inyo ang conceptual framework. Now, what is the difference between the two? What is a theoretical framework and what is a conceptual framework? Depending on the scope. Okay, pagka theoretical framework, it is broader. While the conceptual framework, ikaw yung gumagawa nito, so you're only focusing on something. You're only focusing on your research. And that framework is very narrow. Pag sinabi nating narrow, dun lang siya nakatuon. Focus ka lang. While theoretical framework, kagaya nung sinat nating example kanina, nag-base siya dun sa two theories. Meron siyang theories na pwedeng sila mismo yung nag-create as a scientists or inventors or prominent researchers. Pero, broad siya. Kumbaga, sa subjective and objective natin, it's objective. A theoretical framework is objective. While a conceptual framework, it's subjective. It only focus on your topic and your ideas and beliefs. Okay? It can also, theoretical framework also can be used in different studies. Kagaya nga nung sinet nating examples, those are theories that are made from different researchers already. While the conceptual framework, this is directly related to a specific study or topic or title of your own. Okay? Yun yung pinagkaiba nilang dalawa. Now, what is the focus of the content? A theoretical framework focus on the particular theory used already in the field. Ayan, paulit-ulit ko sinasabi, di ba? It is already in the field. This theory has already existed in the field. While a conceptual framework is a set of related concepts to a specific study based on your own understanding, based on your own belief. Okay? Now, what are the number of theories? For theoretical, this presents one theory at a time. While in conceptual framework, they may synthesize one or more theories based again on your own thoughts, your own ideas. Okay? Time of development. For theoretical, it is already existing before the conduct of the study. So, pwedeng yung dalawang theories na pinakita ko sa inyo sa theoretical already existed before this new study. Okay? Itong example natin is a new study, ha? For a theoretical framework. So, ano yung dalawang theories na ginamit nila? Recency effect theory and the other one is the student's retention ability. So, it already existed before the conduct of the research. While the conceptual framework, it is being developed while we are still planning and writing the specific research. Okay? So, ngayon, ma'am, paano po namin isusulat yon? You can base your conceptual framework from your research statements, statement of the problem. So, basahin mo yon. For example, the title is about the violence, crime and violence, and then nilagay mo, what are the effects of crime and violence? And ano pang mga research questions ang nilagay mo? How will the barangay handle the crime and violence within that particular area? And then naglagay ka pa ng and etc. etc. So do sa mga research questions mo, may na-formulate ka na ideas na dapat specify mo sa ating conceptual mapping or sa conceptual framework mo. Kasi from those ideas or mga terms or yung sinasabi nating highlights, madaling maiintindihan ng readers mo yung gusto mong i-execute para sa iyong research. Ibig ko sabihin, pag nakita nila yung mapa mo, na-visualize nila agad kung ano yung kalalabasan or kung ano yung gusto mong talakayin sa iyong research work. Okay? Mapa to. Ang conceptual framework is a map na madali nating i-visualize kung ano yung gusto mong ipalitaw sa research work mo. Kagaya ng paggawa ng bahay. 'Di ba may blueprint muna bago siya itayo. Yung blueprint na yon, yun yung pagbabasihan ng mga engineer mo, ng mga designer mo kung paano itatayo yung bahay mo, kung ano yung magiging itsura niya, kung ano yung kalalabasan niya. Okay? Now, what are the similarities between this framework, these two frameworks? Okay, the first one is to provide an overall view of the research study. So that is another importance of these frameworks. So dahil dito sa mga frameworks na to, mapoprovide natin yung kabuuan na tatalakayin mo sa research work mo. Ano yung kabuuan? With just this concept map, makikita mo, tatalakayin nila yung mga estudyante, yung mga teachers, tatalakayin nila yung mga pami-pamilya. And then, saan sila magbe-base? Sa mga factors of the retention ability of the student. Oh, I see. So, lahat na doon na-visualize nyo. And that is providing the overall view of the research study. It also anchors a theory that supports the study, just like the example earlier. Ah, yung conceptual framework niya, sinusuportahan yung isang theory na alam ko. Kasi you're a reader eh. So, ilalagay mo yung sarili mo as a reader first. Next is guide in developing the relevant research questions, objectives, and questions. So, ito yung magiging giya natin para ma-produce natin yung research work natin. Okay, di ba nga kanina nabanggit ko from your research questions or the objectives, pwede ka dun makakreate ng mga ideas or concept mo and you can write it as your framework. Okay? Next is help justify your assumption or hypothesis. Okay? Ano ba yung hypothesis mo about your research work? So, etong mapa mo, nakatulong to dun sa thought mo kasi na-drawing mo siya, na-i-present mo. Okay? Next is aid in choosing appropriate methodology. Once na nasulat mo na yung conceptual framework mo, madali mo na lang maisip kung anong methodology yung gagamitin mo. Paano ko kaya i-conduct ito? Eh, ang aking participants would be the teachers, and then we also have the students. So, I guess siguro magandang gamitin yung survey. So, magsusurvey ka. Malalaman mo kung anong mas maganda. Or, I guess magandang gamitin is just mag-interview na lang ako. Okay? So, those are the similarities or the similarities of the importance of theoretical and conceptual framework. Oh, next is helping in gathering and interpreting data and guide in identifying the possible threats to validity. Once kasi nag-drawing ka ng ideas mo about your research, lilitaw pa yung mga thoughts na hindi mo na ilagay sa yung research question. Oops, wait lang. Parang hindi na valid. Oh, wait lang, nalalayo na ako sa aking research work kasi iba yung naisip kong idea, iba yung lumitaw at naisulat ko sa conceptual framework ko. So, yung mga ganong possible threats within your validity, madali mo siyang naiiwasan. Ganon ang importansya ng both theoretical and conceptual framework. Okay? Now, what is the purpose of the conceptual framework? O, dito na tayo sa conceptual framework. Kasi tandaan nyo, sa quantitative research, ang mahalaga na gagamitin natin is the conceptual framework. First is, it shows the organization, order, and direction of your research study. Kagaya ng, for example, mag-aaral ka sa isang school, sa isang university, or magtatrabaho ka sa isang school or isang university, kailangan mo munang makita yung organizational chart ng isang papasukan mo. So, dun sa organizational chart, nandun yung pinakamataas, tapos yung mga hierarchy, yung ranking ng mga staff na makakasama mo. So, ganun din sa isang research. Nilalagay natin yung mga ideas and thoughts natin accordingly. Okay? And then, yun nga, nabanggit ko kanina, what is the topic, the main topic, and then what are the subtopics. So, this showcase the order and direction of your research study. Second, an essential initial activity of your research because by means of a schematic diagram, this enables the readers to obtain a general understanding of the research. Kagaya ng pinakita ko sa inyo kanina. Balikan natin. Ito lang yung pinakita ko sa inyo kanina. Tama ba? So, ano yung nakuha niyong understanding as a reader? Nakita niyong understanding, ang kanilang tinatalakay is about the ability, the retention ability of the students. They will focus on the students. And there is an involvement for the people at home. And there is also affecting factors or involvement within the environment, within the teacher, and other topics. So, di ba, madali nating nakuha, madali nating naintindihan kung ano yung tatalakayin ng research na gagawin nila. Simply by just looking on their conceptual framework. So, dapat pag gagawa po tayo ng conceptual framework, pagkakita lang ng readers na analyze na natin kung ano yung gusto nating iparating or talakayin doon sa ating research work. So, yan po yung ibig sabihin ng number two. It's an essential initial activity of your research because of this diagram, this enables the readers to obtain a general understanding of the research work. Okay? Third one, it gives a notion on the research activities you want to perform, on the manner you want to carry out, and the knowledge you want to prove. O kapareho ng mga sinabi ko kanina. Next is it also serves the purpose of clarifying the concepts and their relationships with one another. So, paano po to, ma'am? Paano po nagkakaroon ng relationship with one another? Kaya nga po, di ba, diniscuss po natin yung dependent and independent variable. And in quantitative research, kailangan yung dependent and independent variable is merong connection or relationship from one another. Kagaya ng title na, ano ba yung lagi nating tinatitle? Okay, paano makakaapekto or what are the effects of online gaming to the students' academic performance? Nagkaroon ba ng relationship from one another? What are the variables? The effect of online gaming, and then the other variable is the students' academic performance. There is a relationship between that. Pero, yun nga lang, it shows a cause and effect relationship. Okay? So ngayon, since that is your title, those are your variables, you have to clarify the concepts and your relationship. Okay? Okay. Lalobat na yung laptop. Okay. Now, what I need to know. What are the things that you need to know? In this framework, in this conceptual framework, this consists of the key concepts and the assumed relationships of your research project. So this is normally used as a guide for the researchers so that they are more focused on the scope of their studies. Guys, this is not only a guide for your readers, but also a guide for you as a researcher. Kasi once na may mapa ka na, for example, may susuungin kang gera or may susuungin kang pagpapatayo, construction of something, of a building or a house, may mapa ka ng susundin, magiging guide mo siya, right? Alam mo kung paano yan, alam mo kung ano yung focus mo, paano siya patatayuin, kung paano yung magiging itsura niya. Okay, so that is your guide. So this can be presented using a visual, diagrams, kagaya ng mga nauna kong pinakita sa inyo, charts, etc. And you can also write a narrative report or narrative document about it. A paragraph stating the concepts and the relationship of the study. So, mostly makikita natin kung ano pa yung, paano natin siya makikita or mape-present. Now, let's move on. Now, what is a concept map and how it is related to conceptual framework? So, since kanina, yun naman na yung binabanggit ko sa inyo, di ba? Nag-draw ako ng concept map. So, a concept map could be just like the first activities that we have conducted, the importance of quantitative research, and then I ask you to give at least 4 areas that showcase the importance of quantitative research. And this is a very example of a concept mapping. So, sa lahat ng mga aralin, hindi lang sa research, gumagamit tayo ng concept mapping. Bakit? Ayun, kagaya nga ng mga nauna kong sinabi, kasi ang concept map po ay nakakatulong po para mailabas po natin yung mga ideas and thoughts natin. So this concept map, usually it is in a narrative form, kagaya ng mga ginawa niyong mahahabang sentences. Pero for me, a concept map, kahit yung mga terms lang, kagaya ng mga sinet kong example sa inyo. Kagaya nung example natin na nauna. So, nilagay niya yung topic, and then sino yung participants niya, and then ano yung mga variables within his topic. So, ganun po dapat sa concept mapping. Dapat yung mga simple lang, mga simpler terms lang. Kaya lang, yung mga ginawa niyo nung unang activity natin, sentences copied from the internet. 'Di ba? Guilty. So, dapat sa concept mapping, simple terms, words lang na madaling makikita ng inyong readers. Ah, ganun pala yung kanyang pag-aaral. Okay? Now, what is this concept map? These are made up of varied figures, lines, circles, boxes, and other marks or symbols representing your concepts on your varied features of your research. Looks like a map showing the main features or variables in the research. Okay, it looks like a map just like this one. Or kung ano man yung pwede nyong i-draw or kung paano nyo gustong i-execute yung mga circles and boxes nyo. Through the proper connection of lines and pointing of arrows to boxes and other codes symbolizing your concepts about the research, the readers are able to visualize a comprehensive picture of your study. So, paulit-ulit ko nang nababanggit yan kanina. A set of coherent ideas to make it easy to communicate the words to others. Do you agree with that? Yes! 'Di ba nung nabasa natin yung term na computer, home, school, retention ability of the students, nakaisip tayo ng idea na communicate natin kung ano yung gustong iparating ng researcher na yon. 'Di ba? So, that is the setting of coherent ideas that will make it easy to communicate the words. Overview of ideas and practices or a set of assumptions, values and definitions and it also encapsulates why we use certain methods and how many we would like to analyze. Makikita natin yan doon, 'di ba? Nilagay nila yung participants. So, paano kaya sino yung sakop nito? Ilan-ilan tong mga to. Madali nating masummarize sa utak natin yon pag nakita natin yung concept map. Concept maps begin with the main topic. Ayun na nga. And then, branch out into subtopics. Ayan, subtopics mo. Reflecting the connection of all the elements in the study. It can also provide and organize new ideas. So, from your main topic and then your subtopics. Within that subtopic, pwede ka pang mag-create under it. Okay? So, wag lang kayo mag-focus dito. Pwede dun sa kagaya ng mga ginawa natin kanina. Your main topic, so sabi nga niya, 'di ba? It could be circles and boxes. For example, main topic and then your subtopic. Oh, for example, I have 3 subtopic about it. And then from that subtopic, meron pang mga portion underneath it. Okay? May mga sanga-sanga pa. Based on your thoughts, ha? Yan. So, depende kung paano mo gagawin yon as a researcher. And then, of course, dapat it reflects the connection of the elements of the study. And it also can take the form of charts, graphic, organizers, tables, flowcharts, Venn diagrams, timeline. O, alam nyo naman yung timeline, di ba? Dati simula pa pagkabata nyo. What is the timeline of your life? O, you have to write from the time na ipinanganak ka, then yung elementary days, your high school days, your college days. Ayan, pinapagawa sa atin yan. That is the timeline or the history of your life or depende kung anong klase. Okay? And then, The T-charts. O, yun yung mga, paano yung T-charts isulat. So, pwede kayong magbase dyan sa mga forms na yan kung paano nyo execute yung inyong concept map for the conceptual framework. Okay? It also helps you in formulating a specific topic from the general or the main idea with significant connections of information. In other words, understanding the big picture makes the details more significant and easier to comprehend. Okay? Dahil dun sa conceptual framework na pinakita ko sa inyo kanina, kahit hindi natin nakita kung ano yung title, alam nyo na it focuses about the students, about the school, about the retention ability of the students. Okay? Dun nga sa concept map nila, pwede tayong gumawa ng research title natin. Dahil dun sa mga ideas na ibinigay nila sa atin. Okay? That is a concept map. So it is very useful for researchers and readers who understand better visually. Because of those maps na nakikita natin, it could be a charts, form of flow charts, Venn diagrams, concept map diagram, na-visualize natin kung saan dadaloy ang isang research work. Kasi mapa na siya blueprint na siya. Okay? Now, what is a systematic functional grammar? What is this SFG? SFG is a modern language theory which states that man's critical thinking increases whenever he uses language. So, sa paggawa po natin ng concept map, meron nang nai-produce na theory about it eh. So, meron tayong mga iba't ibang SFG grammar or theories underneath nito. Number one is the ideational function. So, the knowledge acquisition. From your ideas, from your thoughts, your belief, from your mind itself, nakakapag-produce ka ng mga to. Napoproduce mo siya. And that is ideational function. So, gagana yung iyong utak, and then, ifo-formulate mo yung concept map mo. Through your beliefs, your ideas, your opinions. So, that is from your mind. That is ideational functioning. Next is interpersonal functioning. So, paano natin na-formulate yon? Through human relationship. Dahil meron tayong kinokondak na interview, survey, nagkakaroon tayo ng mga ideas and beliefs from talking, from interpersonal communication. And that is interpersonal functioning. Next is textual functioning. O, saan natin ina-apply to? From the strategic and coherent expressions of ideas. So, pag sinabi natin from the word itself, textual, pwedeng nababasa, pwedeng nasusulat. Okay? So, that is textual functioning. So, yung mga ideas mo is from nababasa, from your nababasa, and dun sa mga naisusulat mo. Next is critical thinking. So, ito yung lagi nating ginagawa sa research work. Lagi nating ina-apply. So, sa ating research work, ang laging focus natin is the dependent variable. What is the effect? What is the presumed effect of your study? So, doon natin nakikreate yung critical thinking. Nag-iisip din tayo in all aspect. Okay? And those are the systematic functional grammar theory. Kung paano natin bubuuin yung ating concept mapping. Ideational function from your knowledge acquisition. Interpersonal function from creating human relationship. Sa pakikipag-ugnayan mo, nakaka-create ka ng ideas. Textual function, strategic and coherent expression of the ideas through reading or writing. Critical thinking from the variables of your research study, from the dependent, from the effect of your research study. Okay? So, eto. Gumawa tayo ng concept map about the ideational function, from the systematic functional grammar. So, ano yung mga sangay niya? We have the ideational function, we have the interpersonal function, textual function, and the critical thinking. And then, pwede mo pandugtungan to. O, ano yung mga nandito sa ideational function? O, mag-iisip ka na ng idea. Ano nga yung nabanggit ni ma'am kanina pagka ideational function? These are the thoughts, the ideas. Own thoughts, own ideas. O, pwede mong ilagay yon as sangay dun sa dulo-dulo niya, sa sanga-sanga niya. Pagka naman textual function, these are the books, the thesis, the dissertations na mamakikita mo. Pag interpersonal function, interviewing, ano pa ba? Survey, ano pa bang form ng interpersonal function? Pagkukwentuhan, paano ba in English doon? Storytelling, di ba? Sa critical thinking naman, these are your variables. What are the effects of blah blah blah? Your dependent variable. O how will you produce critical thinking within your study? So marami po tayong pwedeng ilagay sa concept mapping natin na nagbe-base tayo sa theory ng systematic functional grammar. Okay? Now, what are the pointers in writing a conceptual framework? What are the pointers? Paano natin isusulat ito? Ano yung mga dapat nating tandaan? First, you have to familiarize yourself with the objectives of your conceptual framework. Anong ifa-familiarize mo? Yung objective mo, what are the objectives? Objectives are your main topic and then your research questions, your statement of the problem. That's why it's very important na maging clear ka sa statement of the problem. Okay? So you have to familiarize it first. Kasi doon natin kukunin yung maiisip nating konsepto or pagbabalangkas natin ng iyong diagram. Next is you have to base the contents of your conceptual framework. Yan, ito na naman. On your own understanding of the elements on the relationship of the research features. Again, the contents are based on your own understanding, your own opinion, your thoughts. Yun yung pinagkaiba niya sa theoretical framework. In theoretical framework, you are providing theories from the other research work. While here in conceptual framework, that is your own understanding. Okay? See to it that all the aspects of the conceptual framework are related to the objective of the research. Baka may nilagay ka dyan na terms or may nilagay ka dyan na wording na very far from your research work. That's a mistake. Ibig sabihin, hindi mo naiintindihan concept, yung konsepto or pagbabalangkas mo ng yung research work. Usually, dyan nagkakamali yung mga nagpapacheck for the conceptual framework. Naglalagay sila, nagkakabit sila ng mga wordings, pangpadagdag sa framework nila na hindi naman related dun sa research work nila. That is wrong. Okay? Let others read your conceptual framework for comments or feedback for improving purposes. So, isa yun sa reason kung bakit chine-check yung conceptual framework. And then, you can also check from other researchers or you can check within your group. Tama na ba na itong blueprint natin? Tama na ba itong mapa natin? Baka merong mga nai-input na hindi naman right terms or words para sa study natin. So, yun yung mga pointers na kailangan nating i-analyze or tandaan kapag ginagawa na natin yung conceptual framework natin. So, paano natin gagawin to? You have to brainstorm with the other group member. Brainstorm with your group researcher. Okay? Or, ikaw yung gagawa ng conceptual framework and then ipapacheck mo sa kanila. Okay? So, there are a lot of ways. Now, what are the steps in developing a conceptual framework? Kanina meron tayong binanggit, 'di ba, yung mga steps. So isa lang 'yon. Now, ito yung general or yung standard na gagawin natin. We have three. First, you have to conduct a review of literature. So nasa chapter 2 to eh, 'di ba? Paano yung gagawin natin? Pag sinabi nating review of literature, pag sinabi nating conduct, magbabasa ka na. You have to read and read and read a lot of literature. Okay, you have to read and review their work, their research work. Siyempre, yung mga related lang sa topic mo, hindi ka lalayo. Okay? Yung related lang dun sa title mo. Baka naman ang title mo is about crime and violence, pero ang iyong nire-research or ang iyong nire-review na literature is about the mental health. So, nalalayo ka. So again, first step in developing your conceptual framework, you have to conduct first a review. You have to read and read and read. And then create a flowchart. After that, babalangkasin mo na siya. Flowchart of the other study, flowchart of the other one, until the time that you will write a narrative about it. And the last thing is, hindi na natin nalagay dito, syempre, yung summarize ng iyong output. Okay. Eto na yung aking output. From several, kasi gagawa ka muna ng burador mo or yung tinatawag na draft. From that first draft, second draft, until the final output, the final draft. And then afterwards, you can write a narrative report about it. Okay? Bakit yun? Kumbaga, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, nung nagbantay ako sa during examination, DRR yata yung subject na yon. So, merong picture. Yung picture na yon, ide-define mo siya. So, ganun yung narrative report. You have to identify, you have to point out what is that picture all about. So, what is this concept map all about? And that would be your narrative report about it. Pero hindi mahaba ha. Yung summarize lang nung picture or concept map na yon. Okay? Okay, slide 19 out of 27. Now, what are the variables in a quantitative research? What are the variables? So, the independent variable is, ito na naman, nauulit na naman po tayo. So, we have to define first the variables. So, we have the independent variable and the dependent variable. Independent variable is your presumed cause, while the dependent variable is the presumed effect of the research problem. Now, we have different variables aside from these two. Etong dalawang to, eto lang yung pinaka-focus natin. Eto yung pinaka-major variables na usually ginagamit natin sa quantitative research. Pero marami pang variables. So, what are the other variables? Isa yung isa-cite natin para makatulong sa paggawa nyo ng concept map. And that is the moderating or the intervening variable. So this is an element that exists between the independent and the dependent variable. A mediator or mediating variable as is an integral part of the cause-effect relationship that help us to understand the effect of the independent variable on the dependent variable. So this variable that describes the effect and the influence of the relationship between the variables and what is also called the correlated or the mediator variables. Kumbaga, kung isusulat mo siya sa concept map, for example, these are your independent variable, these are your dependent variable. And then, etong gitna na to, that is the connecting or the moderating or intervening variable. Pumapagitna siya dun sa dalawa. Okay? Paano po yon, ma'am? So, let's see. I have set here an example. Example of quantitative research title. Example is number 1, the alcohol addiction among the high schoolers or among women. So, who are the one alcohol addiction among the high schoolers, 'di ba? So, how alcohol has affected to human health. This could be a research title or drinking pattern and the reasons for drinking. So, itong mga to, meron siyang dependent and independent variables already. Paano natin lalagyan ng moderating variable? Sige nga, magsaset ako ng time, 60 seconds. Let's go. Isip kayo ng title. Title tuloy. Isip po kayo ng pwede nyong i-create na research title using that titles already. Using those titles, pwede nyong pagsama-samahin yan. So, bubuo kayo ng dependent, independent variable, and the mediating or intervening variable na kokonekta dun sa inyong dalawang variables. 34, 33, 32, 31, 29, 20 seconds, 12 seconds, okay, there you are. So, time's up. Ano yung mga nabuo nyong mga research titles within that? Okay? Pwede nating sabihin na propose titles with moderating variables. Oops, na-advance. Yan. Number one, alcoholic addiction among high schoolers and their drinking pattern. So, alin yung naging moderating variable natin dyan? So, we have the alcoholic addiction and their drinking pattern as the dependent and independent, while the moderating variable is the high schooler students. Next example, how alcoholic has affected to human health and their reasons for drinking. So what could be the dependent and the independent? The alcoholic that is affected, and then the reasons for drinking as another variable. Then human health will be the moderating variables. So yun po yung pag-identify ng moderating variable. Okay? So parang pangatlong variable na siya. So actually marami pa pong ibang variables like control variable and a lot more. Kaya lang hindi na po natin isa-cite yon. Doon lang muna tayo magfo-focus dun sa nagko-connect within the different variables, the dependent and the dependent, which is the moderating variable or the intervening variable. Now, how are we going to make the concept map of your own research? So, ito na po yung input, process, output model. Input mo, what is the process, what is the output? Model na ginagamit sa concept mapping. So, nabanggit ko kanina, depende sa inyo kung paano nyo isusulat yung inyong concept map or yung diagram nyo. Pero this one is a model na ginagamit ng mga researchers para makapag-produce sila ng concept map. Ano ba tong input, process, and output model na to? So, input is usually the independent variable of the study. The process is the intervention or the solution that consists of the instruments and analysis used to acquire the result. So pag sinabi nating process, in other words, this is your moderating variables, your intervening variable. While the output is the findings or outcome of the interventions being made to solve your identified problem. Or yung sinasabi natin na dependent variable. Again, we have the input as the, sulat natin. Sorry, medyo madumi na yung board natin. The input, ganito ko siya i-drawing for example. Ito yung usually na ginagawa ng mga researchers eh. Very basic concept lang. Yan. So, this is the input, this is the output, and this is the process. So, ito po ay sa management to eh, sa management course. Usually, paano mo gagawin, for example, na sa isang production, ano ka. So, paano mo gagawin yung isang computer. So, ilalagay mo muna yung mga input natin sa computer. And then, ano yung process? Ano yung dapat na gawin mo dun sa mga materials na nilagay mo dito sa input? And then, yung output niya is mismong yung computer na. So, here, the computer parts, what are the process para mabuo yung computer parts sa input, and then the output is the computer itself. So, ganun natin matatandaan tong IPO na to, the input, process, output. So, dito naman sa research, pag sinabi nating input, ito po yung mga independent variables natin. While the output, this is your effect or the dependent variables. And then, sa process, ito yung mga intervention or yung ating mga moderating variables, yung pumapagitna dun sa dalawa. Again, this concept map is pwede nyong i-draw according to your preference kung paano nyo siya ilalagay, ibabalangkas. So, set example ko lang to. Wag naman ganito lang yung i-drawing nyo. Okay? Maraming ibang forms. Pwede kang gumamit ng Venn diagram, ng other charts. Okay? Pwede. So, that is the input process output model. Tanan mo, pag input, dapat nandito yung mga independent variables mo. Yung mga independent variables, thoughts mo about your study. Then, pagka output mo, those are the effect. What are the effect of your research study? And what is the process that you're going to use or the method or the intervening variables na pumapagitna dyan sa dalawang relationship na yan. Okay? We're about to finish. Now, what are the common example of the conceptual framework? Ayan, independent variable and dependent variable model. For example, ayan. I will put, this is a figure of a schematic diagram of the independent and dependent variable of the study. For example, you have the study of the effect of hours of study on the academic performance of the students. So what is the independent variable? When we say independent, the cost, tama ba? Yes, that's right. The cost, so the hours of the study. What is the academic performance? What is the dependent variable? That is the academic performance, yung ating effect. So now, this conceptual framework shows the independent and the dependent variables of the study. So there is a presume that more number of hours of students prepares for the exam, the higher would be the expected academic performance. So dito, meron siyang concept map, pero hindi pa to tapos. Okay? Model lang to ng independent and dependent variable. So pwede mo pa siyang dagdagan. Another example, ayan na, pag input natin ng IPO, Input Process Output Model. For example, your title is about this conceptual framework shows the input, process, and output approach of the study. Again, ayan nga, nasabi ko na sa inyo, the input is the independent variable, which includes ayan, ano yung nakalagay sa input natin? The social demographic profile, this could be the age, the sex, the marital status. Di ba na-discuss to sa survey questionnaire items? Ano yung mga dapat nating ilagay doon? And then, next is the food safety profile. Knowledge, act, attitude, practices. So you just have to make sure na this input are the independent variables. And then, what is the output? On the other hand, it's about the the effect of your study. It's about the proposed intervention program. And then the process, what could be the process that you're going to do? You have to do profiling. Ano yung profiling na ginawa mo? That is the socio-demographic profiling, right? And then, ano pang process? You will do survey questionnaire. And what else? Data analysis. So that is the process. So this IPO is a very simple na ginagamit na guide sa paggawa ng conceptual framework. Pero marami pa po. Depends on your ideas and thoughts. Okay, example number 2. Sige, kayo naman ang gumawa. So, pwedeng ganyan ang paggawa, pagsulat. Okay, you have to spot the variable. The research title is about medical intervention and the number of patients recovering from pneumonia. You know what is pneumonia, di ba? So, para mailagay natin, ma-input natin yung mga variables dito. For example, meron na tayong mga variables na naisip. Kunyari, may mga naset na tayo. Ano yung mga variables na naisip natin? This could be the work experiences of the nurses, the healthcare facilities, the extent of recovery of post-operative patients, and the nursing intervention. Now, I'm giving you 1 minute to input. Ibang input to ha. I mean, to write or get a paper and then write kung yung mga elements and variables natin, saan nyo siya ilalagay. So, 1 minute starts now. O, saan mo ilalagay yung work experiences of nurses? Is it independent variable? Healthcare facilities, is it dependent variable? Extent of recovery of post-operative patient, is it moderating variable? So bago natin magawa yon, you have to analyze first what is the research title. So kung ikaw yung researcher, madali lang yan kasi ikaw ang nag-formulate ng variables na yan or ng thoughts and ideas na yan. Okay? Now, 26, 25, 17, 16, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. O, ano yung na-formulate nyo? Saan nyo nilagay yung mga variables na yan? Yung mga elements na yan? Again, yan kunyari ikaw yung researcher, kunyari yan yung mga variables na naisip mo. Okay? So, ganito po nila sinet yung kanilang concept mapping about that medical intervention and the number of patients recovering from pneumonia. This is the answer in example number 2. So, nursing intervention is the independent variable, while the extent of the recovered patients, that is the effect. Okay, that is the dependent variable. So, what are the moderating variables? So, pwedeng madami to. Pwedeng yung nag-base sila para makuha nila yung recovery of the patients based on the nursing intervention, kailangan nilang saliksikin yung mga work experience of the nurses or yung mga healthcare facilities. And that is considered as the moderating variable. It supports the effect and the cause and the effect, the independent and the dependent variable. So that is the model of IPO, the input, process, and then the output. Sana naiintindihan natin. Now, this is the activity for lesson 10. You have to spot the variable. So, I'm giving you the time to do this one. You have to answer it in a piece of paper and submit it to our Google Classwork. So, I'll be posting it to the Google Classwork that is numbered, module numbered 5. And then you will again create a work. You have to picture it at the piece of paper that you have made and then upload it to the classwork, module number 5. So this is the research title. The effects of the social responsibility of corporation to its organizational performance. Ayan. You will write this one, the independent, dependent, and then the moderating variable. And these are the variables. So you have to analyze it first. Analyze and then try to input those elements variables on our diagram. Okay? So, saan mo lalagay yung organizational performance? Is it independent variable or dependent or moderating variable? Next is the total number of employees, the client's loyalty, the corporate social responsibility, the employee's dedication, administrative commitment, corporate business location, and the type of business. So, gumawa ka ng map natin, independent and the dependent variable. And then, i-input mo yung mga yan. Okay? Write it in a piece of paper or on your notebook and then submit it to the Google Classwork, including the next activity. What is the next activity? You have to create an initial research framework for your research study. So before previous activities, we already did the research titles, and then I asked you to make your research statement of the problem. So from that statement of the problem, it's not impossible for you to create your own concept map. Okay? But what kind of concept map are we going to write? Very simple. You can use the IPO, the input and then the process and then the output, or you can make your own concept map. Ayan na, free to do ka na to do your own concept map with considering yung tinuro ko, the input, output, and what do you call this? The process or the moderating or intervening variables. Okay? Pero, pwede mong gawin yung sarili mong concept mapping. Hindi ka magbe-base sa ganito. First activity lang yon. Yung second is on your own concept map. So, create an initial research framework for your research study and then consider the relationship between the concepts and the variables in your research. Then, prepare a concept map representing this relationship visually. Use the space below for your answer, or you may use the separate paper if the space provided is not enough. So, nakalagay kasi yun sa mga modules natin. So, your research title and then gayahin nyo na lang to your variables. Yung variables nyo, idirekta nyo na dun sa concept map nyo. Okay? Yan. So that ends our lesson for this module 6 na ba? Module 5? Or module 5. So sana may naintindihan po kayo sa conceptual framework and nakatulong tong lecture recorded lesson natin para ma-distinguish nyo yung paggawa ng concept mapping or the conceptual framework. Okay? So thank you and have a good day. So kontakin nyo lang si ma'am pagka may mga katanungan pa kayo. Bye! Have a good day. Thank you, guys.